Crazed Eights here. We're gonna do a quick recap of last night's match. I thought it was pretty fun for me. I won. I played Shigeki Stax versus Obeka Infinite Turns and Mr. House Dice Fun Times. So this is the deck kind of laid out. Just a quick overview. It's I call it Shigeki Stax. Shigeki is a 1 green, 1/3 legendary enchantment creature, snake druid, 1 and a blue. Return Shigeki Jukai Visionary to its owner's hand. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest into your graveyard. And it has channel XX green green. Discard Shigeki. Return X target non-legendary cards from your graveyard to your hand. So this is just it's a ramp piece, and it can pull some fun stuff back from the graveyard. It's a pretty standard mono green ramp deck shell. We're just trying to go big and find a way to win. The deck doesn't play a ton of ways to actually close out a game outside of a big layer of the Hydra, Field of the Dead, Titania for tokens. It plays one straight up combo. We play the Karn Megosynth Lattice to turn off everybody's lands. Outside of that, we're just trying to get big, get annoying with our stacks pieces, and then make everybody want to concede, really. We have 30 lands, you have none. I have a grip full of cards. We don't play too many stacks pieces. Winter Orb, Storm Cauldron, Manglehorn, Static Orb, Smokestacks, the classic, and then Thorn of Amethyst, just to slow everybody down. That's really the deck. We play all permanents except for one Primal Surge because that's super fun. So we can flip over our whole deck. Now we don't have a way to win on the spot, so you can't actually flip over the whole deck or you'll just deck yourself. But you flip over 60 or 70 cards, get a bunch of lands, bunch of creatures, bunch of triggers, and you go from there. But that's sort of the deck in a nutshell. We can do a deeper dive later. That's not what this is about. But we're gonna go over some cool things from the game last night. The first cool thing is something I didn't even realize was in this deck at the time until I assembled it, but I'm going to play with it more. The combo of, let's make some space here. Let's save that one for later. The combo of Storm Cauldron plus Bootlegger Stash. Both artifacts, which is nice, makes them easy to find. We run a lot of ways to cast lands from our graveyard, as well as, and it's gone forever, as well as Inventor's Fair as our main way to search up artifacts. It's pretty trivial to make artifacts with, the trackers and the Provisioner, the Tireless Bros there. But yeah, so Storm Cauldron. During each player's turn, that player may put one additional land into play. Whenever a land is tapped for mana, return that land to its owner's hand. So I can tap my lands to create treasures and then tap those treasures to make mana and keep my lands, whereas everybody else has to lose theirs. And that's it. It's just a little frustration, right, for the opponent. So that's what we set up last night, pretty early. There wasn't a whole lot of interaction flying around, but that, the deck doesn't have a way to win. I was just sitting there with a ton of mana, had a bunch of clues, had a bunch of cards in my hand, had everything you could ever want, but I didn't have a way to win. I had like a 12-11 Tireless Tracker, and no way to win. I could attack, but I didn't have a ton of blockers. Just the tracker. I had a Seedborn Muse out, which we'll talk about in a second. So I didn't want to attack because the Mr. House deck had a bunch of counters, a bunch of tokens. Could Alpha Strike. Maybe getting chip shot damage from the Obeka player. Anyway, the real fun stuff, the real reason that I wanted to do this Deck tech was sort of like the end of the game when I really put the grips on them, right? So I had Seedborn Muse out and Tireless Tracker, amongst other things. And we played Storm Cauldron. There was like an Exploration, an Oracle Mudaya, right? I could play a bunch of lands. And I had a ton of mana. I mean, I probably had 20 lands, a Nykthos, right? But the key one was Emergence Zone. Emergence Zone. Right, so I had a stack of lands, an Emergence Zone. I had a Bootlegger stash, right? And everything was looking up for me. Things were going good for the Shigeki player. I was cruising on my way to victory, but you know, the Mr. House deck can sort of combo finish and win out of nowhere. You know, with a bat and a bunch of counters, a bunch of treasures, come in, sack, that's 2 damage, just fine, 30 damage. And I don't have any way to interact directly, right? I can play a Thorn of Amethyst, but that's about it, right? So I felt comfortable, but it wasn't a given that I was going to win until this turn. So the Obeka player, after I played my Storm Cauldron, the Obeka player does his thing, and he's like, alright, I'm going to Cyclonic Rift. Yikes. Okay. So I'm looking around at my cards, at my hand, and I go, alright. Sack Emergent Zone. Right. Sack Emergent Zone. Float a ton of mana. Right, I think it was 50 some. They all come back to my hand from Storm Cauldron. Right, so this is what my hand looked like, full of lands. The Emergent Zone, so everything, I have Flash. Emergent Zone. Cast Cultivator Colossus. Right, all my lands come back. All of my lands come back. Now this is in their second main phase, right? So in their second main phase, I make all of the clues I could ever want. I have 44 mana, and I've just got a handful of cards. Okay, cool. Look at all these good cards. Look at me and my bad stuff. So I put the lands in. I draw a shit ton of cards. I draw a lot of cards, right? And with my 44 mana, I go, okay. Resolve the Cyclonic Rift. Here's my hand. And then he Obekas so that he doesn't have to bounce his lands. And with my 44 mana, I go, alright, Bootlegger stash. Storm Cauldron. Tireless Tracker. Seedborn Muse comes back. We'll play Titania. Get Emergent Zone back. Ugin. Karn. Right? And one of the lands I hit was a shoot. The one that gives you the hand size, Reliquary Tower. So I had the Reliquary Tower, didn't have to discard the hand size. Right, and it's like, alright, pass. Untap my lands. Passes to the Mr. House player who just had all his permanents bounced to his hand. He's real sad. He got to save his commander because I played a Song of the Dryad and he deflecting swatted it, whole thing. So he had his Mr. House. He triggered his Mr. House. Did almost nothing at the end of his turn. I floated 50 mana again. Emergence Zone. Bounce them all back. Cultivator Colossus. All my lands come in. Draw basically the rest of my deck. And so now this is what we're looking at here. We got like all but 1 or 2 cards you know, this is our library. Okay, all my lands are in play. I have essentially infinite mana. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? You know, none of my cards are like, let's end the game now. But I played a One Ring, so I couldn't die. Played Karn, Mycosynth Lattice. I turned off all their shit. More Planeswalkers. Right, so this is what we untapped with. You know, a bunch of extra mana that we could get. So Titania was alive. You know, all the lands triggered Field of the Dead. I had like 62 twos to go along with all this. And that was how we ended the game last night. The combination of Emergence Zone, the combination of Emergence Zone and absolute mess of mana. Lost it amongst the cards. It's too good. It didn't want to come out. I said you were mean, so I'm not going to play anymore. Yeah, so the combination of Emergence Zone, Storm Cauldron, Cultivator Colossus was absurd. Just, I mean, it was one of the cooler things I've ever done. Taking a turn at the end of everybody else's turn, basically with the Emergence Zone, and casting 20 lands every turn with Cultivator Colossus and Storm Cauldron. So I'm going to link this deck. It's pretty sweet. It's expensive, right? I'm not going to act like it's a budget deck by any means, but it doesn't have to be expensive, right? There's a lot of cards. You don't need that. You don't need the Walkers. You don't need that. The One Ring, you don't need. Karn, Ugin, you don't need. You can do other things. That's just what I chose. Titania, you probably want. Seedborn Muse, you probably want. Tracker, Stash. This Storm Cauldron Bootlegger Stash combo is just too cool. Strip Mine, you know, people don't like land destruction. My play group doesn't care so much, so you can cut the Ancient Tomb you don't need. Command Tower, Visage, you don't. Nykthos, you probably want. I wouldn't say you need it, but it's super good. Temple of the False God, extra mana. Mycosynth Gardens you want. I play the Urza's just for some extra mana possibly. Shrine, basically playing all of these double lands. Murex, you don't need. Throne of the High City isn't expensive, but again, you don't need it. Field of the Dead, you want. That's not cheap, but you want it. Glacial Chasm, you don't need. It's just an option to protect yourself. Wasteland, same as Strip Mine. Command Beacon, you don't need. You can end up with a pretty expensive Shigeki if you channel him too much. So I would not cut Command Beacon. Dryad Arbor, you don't need. Urza Saga, you don't need. Senseis, you don't need. Frostfang, you don't need. Library, you don't need. Defense Grid, you don't need. Not that it's expensive. Courser, I don't think is expensive. You want those triggers. Vandal's fine. Song of the Dryads can be anything. Eternal Witness, yes. Excavator and Crucible. Unfortunately, you do need. You know, you can. I play Conduit of Worlds too. You actually don't need all three probably, but you want that effect. You want a lot of that effect. Amulet of Vigor, you don't need. Primal Surge, you want. Need is a strong word. Invasion of Ikoria, I don't know how expensive that is. Let's see. Invasion of Ikoria, yeah, it's pretty expensive. You don't need it. Like most of our creatures, it's not important like which ones they are. Elvish Reclaimer, you don't need, but you want. I would get one of those for the deck. $5 or $6. What's Primal Surge? It reads like a card. Yeah, $5. You want it. Realm Seeker is cheap. We like Realm Seeker. Expedition map, Vesuva isn't necessary. I just have one. Yeah, definitely don't need that. Maze of Ith, you probably want. Petrified Fiat, yes. Yavi Mai is not a need. It's not hard to get your colors, but if you have it, you play it. Forests, obviously, are needs. Lotus Petal is not needed. Elves, Birds of Paradise, it could be any ramp spell. Wild Growth is fine there. Mana Crypt, not needed. Halfling, not needed. Monolith, not needed. Lotus Cobra, yes. And that's, some of this is part of the beauty of the deck, right? Like, it's not one of those super tightly wound, super synergistic decks. It's just a ramp deck with a lot of little cute interactions. You make mana and you figure out what to do with it. Old Growth Troll is, if you're not going to play Nykthos, you don't need Old Growth Troll. But it's 3 pips, 4/4 body ramp spell. Arbor Elf, Collector's Vault, Llanowar Elves, Chrome Mox is not needed. Elvish Mystic, Mox Opal, Solemn, yes. Jeweled Lotus, definitely not. Sol Ring, yes. Winter Orb, no. Thorn, no. None of the Stax pieces. I mean, Smoke Stacks, you definitely want. Static Orb, no. Anglehorn, yes. You hate artifacts. So these next couple of cards are tough. You want to maximize this effect. And these cards are not always cheap. Burgeoning is expensive, but you want it. But if you had to cut it, you could. Azusa has been reprinted a handful of times, so it's not gonna break the bank. Yeah, $4 or $5. Exploration. Exploration you definitely want. It leads to some of the most explosive turns if you can play it on turn 1. 10-ish. Oracle of Moldiah. Gotta have it. Yeah, $6, $7. So I mean, it's not that you drew a class. Yes. Tireless Provisioner. Yeah, you need it. It makes treasures. Inventor's Fair is you probably want. I mean, if you cut most of the artifacts, you can cut Inventor's Fair, but even if you have a couple, you want it. Reliquary Tower's got to be in there. Lair of the Hydra. Deserted Temple is only in there if you're gonna play Nykthos. I play the Urza stuff, they're not expensive. And then I play the Thespian Stage, Dark Depths combo. The stage is not that expensive. I don't actually know what Dark Depths looks like these days either. It used to be, yeah, $5. So yeah, you can trim a lot. The deck as it stands right now, with all of I got foils and stuff in here, and I put my Mox Field list in with the version it has is a $2,000 deck. So, but you can cut quite a bit, So you cut, you can probably cut $1,500 out of this deck just with those cards I named, right? Let's see. I don't need those. There we go. You need that Thespian Stage deck. You gotta get a way to close the game out for $6, right? So Shigeki obviously has to stay. Static Orb. Static Orbs 20. Thorn of Amethyst 2. So 22. Winter Orbs 13. 35. Jeweled Lotus. $140, so that's $175. Mox Opal. Mox Opal. $180. So that's what, $355. Chrome Mox, $1.20 for 75. Grim Monolith, $3.30. It's like $8.05. Delighted Halfling, 16, $8.21. Mana Crypt. You see where this is going, right? Is 180. So that's 1005. Birds of Paradise, 1013. Lotus Petal, 23. 1035. 36. 1036. Yavi Maya, 15. 1051. Vasuva, 17. 1068. Invasion of Ikoria, 1074. Amulet of Vigor, 1098. Song of the Dryad, 1105. Defense Grid is 1109. Sylvan Library, 35. 1144. Frostfang, 1149. Sensei's Top, 1179. Urza Saga, 43. 1221. Dryad Arbor, 1221. Oh, I lost it. Where's she at? 5. 1226. Leseju. Wow, 55. 1281. Ancient Tomb. 1381. Strip Mine. 1396. Mugen. 1434. 1444. The One Ring. 1504. Yeah, math's getting tough here. 1512. 161528. Ugin, $3. 1531. And Renin 7, 1541. So $1,500 you could realistically swap out with almost anything, and the deck would still function as I described it. Like, you could do all the same stuff, right? None of these cards were relevant to that particular game plan of what I described. These are just cards that I play. You'll have to find a new way to win if you cut this. You want some bombs. You want some more utility lands since we're cutting a bunch of them. But yeah, you could cut almost $1,600 off the deck. Build the rest of it for $400 and fill it out with whatever you want. Some reclaims, some graveyard recursion, maybe some more green removal, maybe some more colorless removal. Token generation to fire off the smokestacks a little more aggressively. Could cut the Primal Surge and throw in some green instants, some spell-based ramp. Some cheaper planeswalkers if that's the thing you're into. What else? Some more manlands. Manlands are good. Some more land ETBs. I'm sure there's more out there that are decent. Better 1-mana ramp since we're cutting halfling and reclaimers and all that good stuff. Yeah. that is what I would do if you know, if you're building on a budget. I get it. I get it. Um, you know, I think it's good to start with your unbudgeted list and work backwards because you can find cards that fill the same role, um, right? Like Renin 7, Karn, Ugin, right? Maybe we want some walkers. You probably want some walkers, right? So we could pop over here to Scryfall real quick, and we look for ID less than or equal to green type planeswalker, right? And we want to sort by, we'll sort by US dollars since we're talking about budget and ascending. So we want to go up, format EDH since we don't want these arena only cards. And we're looking for effective planeswalkers, right? So Vivian on the Hunt is pretty cool. You could build something out of that. Vivian Champion of the Wilds, you know, these are all a couple dollars. Nissa, most of the Nissas are playable. Most of the Garuks are playable. Vivian Reed is $3. This removal can find creatures and lands. It's definitely in play if you were trying to replace some of these more expensive walkers. There's the Nissa Ascended Animist. Can create some creatures. What else we got? Nothing insane, but you know, Ren and Realmbreaker mills cards and gets permanents back, so that's good. The deck is all permanents, so Realmbreaker's not going to miss. Yeah, you don't have to play $40 Ugins, and you know, $10 Karn the Great Creators. You can play $3 Nissas and you'll be fine. You know, you're just looking to generate value. It doesn't have to be this value. You know, the One Ring, Mycosynthellatus, Library, Frostfang, and you know, these are card draw spells. There's other ways to draw cards in green. That's not hard. And this ramp, a lot of this ramp that I got in here, Mana Crypt, Grim Monolith, Chrome Mox, Mox Opal, you just play more ramp creatures, right? You know, you're not worried about it. More mana rocks. The deck makes enough mana just with its lands, right? So you're going to lose some of the like high-powered explosiveness that you get out of these, but you know the pods I play in sort of require that high-powered explosiveness, and this is, you know, this is $800. That's it, and all that is mana. So you can replace a Mana Crypt, or you can replace Grim Monolith with an Arcane Signet and save yourself $500. So that was the recap of the game last night. A little bit of a deck tech on Shigeki. A little talk about building on a budget. Kind of got off the rails, but that's all right. You know, we like to be exhaustive here. I don't want to be like, play this awesome deck, do this awesome thing, but you have to spend $2,000 to do it. No, you don't. You gotta spend a couple hundred. I mean, to really do it. But I mean, you can throw it in whatever deck you want, right? It just needs green, so it can go in any green deck. Cool. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Hit me up. Thanks for watching.